I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill.
And this is Kyle Hunter.
My friends, we have a great show for you today. Lots to cover this week in college football and in the NFL. We finally have some good primetime games, Kyle. We actually had a great Thursday game, obviously. Seattle versus Arizona. That was a fun one. Nice little winner for us, too, at -3. Seattle and just Tampa Bay coming up. You got the Raiders, you got Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, it's going to be a great primetime weekend of football. But also lots to talk about in college. We've had some cancellations, of course, and Kyle, I do have to say that I think as soon as the totals came out, I gave 3 plays out: Miami over, Marshall under, and Maryland over. And all three of those canceled, just happened to cancel. So it's tough, but at the same time, if you look at the size of the slate, you really can't complain because college football just has a lot to offer, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's nice that there's so many games now. That when you lose 15 or 16 games, we still have a decent amount of games to pick from. There's still plenty on TV. There's still plenty going on. It's certainly a shame to see some of these games canceled. I really like Charlotte plus 21.5 against Marshall there this week, and I know you had the under. Thought those were both good looks in that game, but that game ended up getting canceled. There's still quite a few games. We're going to try to take the optimistic side of things instead of talking about a lot of the negative. Still plenty to talk about, and still some really solid games this week.
Absolutely. I'm excited because there's some really big games, and some of the smaller conferences might even have the best games this weekend. Kyle, what are the angles coming up for this college football week 12?
So, weather, I usually talk about weather for a little bit, and weather's not much at all. So I'll just say it real quick. First, the Hawaii game has 20 miles per hour wind, and if you watch Hawaii games very often, you know that there's always a decent amount of wind in those games. So this isn't anything way out of the ordinary. I know this total has gotten bet down quite a bit. I don't think I'd take the under at the number that it is now for Boise State and Hawaii. I know there's also COVID possibilities there for both teams, so there might be some guys missing. Could be on offense, could be on defense, could be a little bit of both. But that's why that total's gone down, is the wind of about 20 miles per hour. The other game is actually tonight, Florida Atlantic, UMass Florida Atlantic. Not an exciting game. Not one of those that we would have been excited to talk about.
Really.
This one's about 19 miles per hour sustained wind as well. Florida also pretty windy, a little bit more windy than normal here. UMass is so bad, it's hard to handicap that game. I mean, Florida Atlantic probably scores about as many as they want to score in that game. But quick weather, because there wasn't much to talk about. A couple good angles here I wanted to point out. Ranked teams at home off a bye. So you got to be at home and you got to be ranked in the top 25 off a bye. 128 and 91 ATS, 58.4%. There's a lot of them this week. I'm going to bring it up here real quick. The teams that are ranked at home off a bye. Some of these weren't expected to be off a bye, but their game was canceled last week. For example, Ohio State, Coastal Carolina, Auburn. I'm trying to see if some of these games are probably canceled. BYU, how do you want to bet North Alabama and BYU? I mean, maybe first half BYU, something like that, if you're going to take it. I'm not going to bet that game. Iowa State, also off a bye at home. Alabama, Georgia. So we have several examples of that this weekend, and I think that'll be one that we'll see quite a bit here over the next couple weeks as well. Ranked teams at home off a bye. And again, this doesn't notate whether they're an underdog or a favorite. Actually, in each role, as a favorite, they're 113 and 78. You would expect most of those teams to be favored. And as an underdog, 15 and 13. Look, if you're at home and you're a ranked team, you're not going to be an underdog very often. So that's a pretty good angle there. Another one I wanted to say, which is only one team this week, but it will be some teams in the weeks ahead. A game that is their 9th game or later in the season. So we're talking a late season game, and you're a favorite of 21 or larger in a conference game. Usually people would say, well, you don't want to take a big favorite, lay that many points in a conference game. At the end of the season, it's been a good bet. Laying 21 or more in a conference game in the 9th game or later, 235 and 179. That's almost 57%. The team that fits that this week, Clemson. So I know Clemson's gotten a lot of steam. Hard to take a team. What are they, minus 35 or 36 or something like that now? So that's hard for me to take. I can't take that one personally, but I wouldn't want the other side either. So I think that's an angle that we'll need to keep an eye on here going forward, because I think we'll hear a narrative from a lot of people on other shows. Well, I got to take the plus 24. I got to take the plus, huge number here in a conference game. Late in the season, a lot of these teams that are big underdogs don't really care very much.
No, they don't, especially in a year where the kids are stuck at home. They're not able to go out and they're losing anyway. It's really hard to take that team, and so you wonder if they're just like, whatever, the season's, it's easy to make excuses this year, and more than any other year. I mean, we've seen it already before when teams are 0-4, 0-5. They're like, yeah, well, this season's shot. Well, now they can have an excuse to not do anything. So really scary to take that. Plus, this is the biggest role that Florida State's ever been a home dog in. 35 points like this. It's just unheard of. If you would have told me that 10 years ago, I would have said you're nuts.
Yeah.
You're absolutely nuts. And it's embarrassing for that school. Even though Clemson's Clemson, the narrative on the sharp side of it is that, Trevor Lawrence is back. He's going to want to put up some points here. So I kind of buy into that myself. I won't bet it, but maybe a first half on that one as well. So that's interesting. Well, let's move on to a few awesome games, Kyle. I mean, this one is so cool because everybody's been on the Chanticleers, man. Coastal Carolina. We talked about them a long time ago. I was high on them coming in, and I did pretty well in the first couple of weeks. I thought the value would go away, and they still keep trucking along. But at the same time, Appalachian State has always been the Sun Belt's top team. I mean, what a great game here. Now, Appalachian State isn't, I don't think, as good as they used to be. I think that they're probably a step down from a couple years back, but they're still, still putting up some numbers. If you look here, there's not really much of a sharp side here, in my opinion. 45% of the tickets are on App State. It was at 5.5. It's down to 5 now, and 53% of the money. If you look at the total here, it was actually from the opener went down a bit. But, you're starting to see some buyback on the over. So their quarterback, Zach Thomas, is very questionable. I have some beliefs on that, but I'll let you go first with this one, Kyle. What are your thoughts here?
Really interesting game, one that I want to watch for sure. Both of these teams are really solid teams. Like you said, Appalachian State's been the class of this conference for quite a while. They're not as good as they've been in the past. They also play a little bit different under their new head coach. In the past, they played fairly quickly, a little bit faster than an average team. Now their tempo is 83rd out of 128, 129 teams playing this year, something like that. So they're 83rd in tempo. Coastal Carolina's 124th. So Coastal Carolina plays really slow, really milks the clock a lot. They've got a really quality offense that has been able to be very efficient. They move slowly down the field. They score touchdowns in the red zone usually. I think that's going to be the difference in this game. Who can punch it in when they get in the red zone and who settles for field goals? I think both these teams will move the ball some. I think they'll both move it slowly. My lean would be the under in this game. On the side, I will say, if you think Zach Thomas is going to play here, you have to take App State, because this is a pretty big number for what, I think with a healthy Thomas, you should assume that this should at least be below 3 for Coastal. So if you think Thomas is going to play and at least be in pretty good shape, App State's probably the way you want to look in this one. Yards per play margin so far this year, I wanted to say, plus 1.38 yards per play for App State and plus 1.62 for Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina sack margin is really impressive, plus 19 sack margin this year. They bring a lot of pressure. They're very aggressive on defense. App State's plus 8 sack margin, so they have a solid offensive line and good defensive line as well. One thing that does stand out, if you like Coastal Carolina, they're much better on special teams, 28th according to S&P, and App State is 100th. I think here, Coastal Carolina, perception on them has gotten really high. Early in the season, if you like Coastal Carolina, you're getting great prices. Now, you're not getting a great bargain anymore. So I can't lay the points with Coastal Carolina. The only side I could take here would be App State, kind of like the under as well.
Yeah, it's a fantastic game, and it's interesting. You lean under. A lot of people I've heard were talking over. Now, I'm not sure. I kind of buy into what you're saying a little bit, just with that defense. I think Coastal Carolina is going to want to pound the ball, like you said. They only score when they're in the red zone. They're cool with milking that clock a little bit. We saw Appalachian State have some trouble against Marshall in the red zone as well. Efficiency is a big thing for me. I think Chadwell's doing an amazing job over there, and they're already talking about him being a Power Five coach. Oh, he's pushed back a little bit on South Carolina, though I hear. So yeah, there's some interesting comments that he made about that position. I'm not so sure if he'd even want to take that for some reason. I'm not sure how attractive that job is, but Sean Clark, I'm not so sure about him. He's relatively new. I think it's his second year here at Appalachian State, and I'm not seeing them jump up. I'm not seeing them regress too much, but I'm not sure if he's a better coach than Chadwell is what I'm trying to say. Like you said, you're right. The yards per play, both teams fantastic, and I think both teams have the same strength of schedule pretty much. So I found that very interesting. I just think that just like you said with the sacks and how Coastal Carolina is in the red zone, they're just the more efficient team, which is huge. That's why you're seeing them +5, I think. And also the Zach Thomas question. One thing I will say is I don't think there's a chance in hell that Zach Thomas doesn't play this game. He went to the hospital, but I've seen people go to the hospital before just for precautionary reasons, but they're actually okay. He tweeted out on Monday that he's excited to join his team and he's feeling good. When you say that thing, it means that you're okay. Now, is his coach smart enough to say he doesn't know? Yeah, the coach is not going to give out that information because they don't have to in college football. But I would be shocked if Zach Thomas doesn't play. My power numbers literally have this closer to a pick 'em. And maybe I didn't upgrade Coastal Carolina enough because I've always had Appalachian State a little bit over them. But, in that Marshall game, Appalachian State, I did believe outgained Marshall. So there wasn't a ton of reason for me to downgrade them. Of course, you go 2 for 2. Georgia State played App State really tough. And then Coastal Carolina blitzed Georgia State 52-0 or something like that. So I found that interesting. The only side for me would be the +5, Kyle. So, do you think Chadwell sticks around with Coastal to next year?
I don't know. I mean, I think there is an argument to be made that the South Carolina job isn't a great job. I don't know that he'd be the first choice or not in that game, but for South Carolina, it's a tough spot because you're recruiting against teams that are really big names. You're up against Clemson, you're up against North Carolina, you're in a league that's really good. So if you just go in there as a new head coach, it's not an easy job to win. So, it would be a challenge, certainly. I will say one more thing about this game. Appalachian State is 14th in yards per carry, almost 5.6 yards per carry. I think they're going to run the ball here a lot. Coastal Carolina is 43rd defending the run. Coastal really wants to get after the quarterback a lot. If Thomas plays, you have to imagine they're not really going to want him getting hit a lot. And if he doesn't play, they're going to be really conservative. So I would think App State runs the football a lot here. They might have some success running the football. And it's possible, too, if Thomas is actually out, which I think he'll probably play, too. But if he were out and somebody knew it before the game, it'd probably go to 7 or something like that. App State might still be worth it at +7 without him because App State is the team that's been in this spot before. I think there's quite a bit of pressure here on Coastal Carolina in this one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they've never laid points against App State. And don't get me wrong, these kids at App State know what the spread is. And this is just going to fire them up even this much more for this game. So just warning anyone that's thinking Coastal Carolina here. That should bring us to a question we had from a great follower of both of ours, Sin City Sharp. He was talking about Liberty and why they're dogs by over 3 points to NC State. Now, I didn't get a lot of time to prep for the question itself, but what I do know is that there is a massive angle where a team that's ranked is a dog against a team that's not ranked, that dog usually gets his butt kicked. I mean, you have NC State. They're playing for the integrity of the ACC, really, because Liberty beat two ACC teams. They beat Syracuse really bad, and we were on that, and we were on them on the money line when they beat Virginia Tech. But that Virginia Tech game, they without that screw up timeout to try to ice a 59-year-old yard field goal, Virginia Tech wins that game. And they got a little bit jumped on that. They had Miami looking ahead. Liberty's a really good team, but one thing I will say is NC State has been really, really improving, and they they should have beaten Miami a few weeks back. They blitzed Florida State last week, and I know Florida State's not that great, but still, they've been improving. So NC State in my power ratings is around 3-4 points better. So it's really close to my number, Kyle. Any quick thoughts on that question?
Yeah, a couple. It's interesting that both of these teams are 6-2 ATS so far this year. Also, both teams 6-2 to the over. I know some people like to go against something like that and take the under. I wouldn't want to take the under in this game. I think 66 is a fair number. In fact, if I had to play this total, I'd probably play the over. Liberty's been really good running, 5.66 yards per carry, 12th in the nation. To be fair, they have run up a lot of yards against teams that are really bad. Liberty's played a couple ACC teams, but they've played a really bad schedule in general.
For sure.
NC State, Bailey Hawkman's not been too bad there as their quarterback as a backup. I think NC State will be able to move the ball on this Liberty defense. Liberty's defense looks like they're okay stats-wise, but they haven't played good offenses at all. I think this is a toss-up game. This is one of those where I would consider it for one of the money lines that we talk about at the end of the show. Top money line, underdog, plus 150 on Liberty. I think that's worth a shot. I don't really like it as a straight bet, plus 3.5, because I think there's quite a few different scenarios that could unfold here that wouldn't surprise me a lot. So I guess this is all for me to say that this is right about at my number as well.
All right. Well, great question, though. And you can see there is some steam on the over here right now, and it's a little bit more of a sharper side, I would say. It's not like the number moved a lot yet, but I bet you this closes closer to 69 this weekend, and I would definitely lean towards the over. I considered it. I really considered it, but at the same time, maybe NC State's defense really comes out to play. They already played De'Aaron King, a running quarterback, like Liberty has. And they got beat bad. Does that mean that they're going to get beat bad again by them, or are they going to figure it out? So that's another couple good angles and questions for this game. Let's move on to the next game then, Kyle. And you picked this one, and I'm not so sure why. I remember you gave me some crap for picking Vanderbilt versus somebody. So when you said East Carolina versus Temple, I wanted to possibly call your wife and make sure you're feeling okay. But possibly you have an angle on this game, so I'm going to let you go first on this one.
No, I'm doing fine, but East Carolina and Temple, to be fair, I like picking out these games like this that are, the games that everybody else would say, wow, what are you interested in that game for? The reason I wanted to look at this game, honestly, this is one where I actually bet this game small personally earlier in the week when I saw this line moving. I saw the news, couldn't release it to clients because the line moved so fast that I didn't want everybody to not get the price that I was going to get there. When Russo was declared out for this game for Temple, the price moved so fast. It was, warp speed. It's going, what was it? Temple minus 2 or 3 or something like that. And next thing you know, it's plus 3 on Temple. East Carolina's favored. I have to tell you, I still like East Carolina some in this game, and I'm hoping maybe I can get Kiev to talk me off this one because, the truth is Temple is a team I really want to bet against. East Carolina is a favorite, not really a team I want to bet that much, but I feel like I should be betting them. Temple's on their 4th-string quarterback in this game. That's really the main reason I wanted to talk about this one. Russo's a pretty good quarterback for Temple. They have nothing behind him. You're starting a 4th-string quarterback. The 2nd and 3rd-string quarterbacks weren't any good, so I'm kind of assuming the 4th-string quarterback's not going to be any good either. So I don't think Temple does much offensively. I kind of like the under in this one as well, but it's hard to take an East Carolina under that isn't, 65 or something like that. So lean to the under. Strong lean to ECU here. I was trying to wait to see if I could get a 3 to release this one to clients. Had a 3 at minus 120 last night there at Bookmaker, but didn't stay around for long. I'm going to look at this one a little bit more and consider releasing minus 3.5 and taking it again as a bet myself at that. I think East Carolina is probably the right side here. It's just it's not real easy to take East Carolina as a favorite.
This is like one of those Siena versus Manhattan college games that Kyle likes to talk about sometimes. Let's look at these teams. There is a little steam on East Carolina still. I mean, past the 3. But, if you look at both of them, Temple minus 1.45 yards per play. ECU is minus 1.64 yards per play. It's literally the opposite of App State, Coastal Carolina. One thing I will say is a 4-string quarterback, Kyle. Man, that's low on the totem pole. So low that I lean in your direction as well. I've been burned on East Carolina a couple times. I thought there were some good spots, like the Tulane a couple weeks back. I thought they would cover against Cincinnati too. I took a personal play on that, just a small one, but I lost that one too because Cincinnati apparently was not looking ahead to UCF this weekend. So that's interesting, but. Holton Ahlers is a good quarterback. I think he is. He's big. If he's not getting too much pressure or has to run around too much, he can hit his team. Temple's a team that might have given up. They're in that situation there. There's really no reason for them to play. If I'm a kid at Temple, why would and a couple girls asked me and the guys to go hang out with them? I mean, what's going to stop you, right? You're a kid. This is your college years. This is a situation where I don't think Temple's going to be too invested personally. So, any final thoughts?
Yeah, and I don't like Rod Carey as a head coach. I think he's a good fade in general. So, anytime I have a chance to go against Temple, I will look to go against them. I think in general they're an over team, but that was if Russo was quarterback. Without Russo, I'm not sure they score many even on East Carolina. So I'm going to lean East Carolina strongly, and this one might end up making my card as well.
All right, well, good stuff, Kyle. Let's move on to the best weekend game of the weekend, in my opinion, what we just alluded to, Cincinnati versus UCF. Cincinnati, it looks like they moved up from 3 points to 6 points, okay? And there's a little buyback. Now it's showing on the Action Network, about 5. This is minus 4.5, minus 115. But you still see the sharper money was on Cincinnati. 64% tickets, 85% of the money was on Cincinnati here. I seen this total open at 59. I don't know why the heck they put 62 here. It was at 59, and it got bought up to 63, 63 and a half. One thing's for sure is UCF. If UCF's going to cover this game with how bad their defense is, you probably think that it might go over, right? But how good is Cincinnati? When I made the total in this game, real early in the week, I put 59, and I'm just giving Cincinnati. The fact they stopped Memphis to 10 points was really big for me, But when UCF lost to Tulsa, I didn't think they deserved to lose that game. And when UCF lost to Memphis, they definitely didn't deserve that loss. I thought UCF was the better team when they lost to Memphis, and I was lucky because I was on Memphis, and I looked at myself. I'm like, I did not deserve that win, in my opinion. So UCF is, to me, the second best team in the American Athletic Conference. Dylan Gabriel, 63%, 23 TDs to 2 interceptions, and he's the quarterback for UCF. So 23 TDs to 2 interceptions. What a fantastic ratio that is. Desmond Ridder for Cincinnati, he's got the more accurate arm so far. He throws less balls, though. UCF is constantly whipping the ball, so you expect that. 66.7% completion percentage, 14 to 6 TD to interception ratio. UCF is 1.4 yards per play positive, which is really good. But Cincinnati is plus 0.285 yards per play. That is extraordinarily good. And that's why Cincinnati, if you look at some of the public power ratings out there, is listed so high. At the same time, my number is 2 on this game, Kyle. So I cannot bet Cincinnati here, but I don't think I want to fade them because I could see Cincinnati coming in there and just stopping UCF, especially because they played a faster paced team like Memphis already and stopped them. So I'm scared of this one. What are your thoughts on this one?
Quite a few thoughts on this game. First of all, I think this is a great game. This is the one I'm most looking forward to watching this weekend, of course, other than Ohio State and Indiana. But, Cincinnati, a team, I like to root for Cincinnati too. Obviously, I like Luke Fickell. Cincinnati, if they keep winning, they're going to have some kind of argument here at the end of the season because Cincinnati's really been playing very well. And while they haven't played a great schedule, it's not been a terrible one either. Cincinnati, like you said, plus 2.855 yards per play, second in the country to only BYU. And look, BYU's played some really bad teams. So Cincinnati, really impressive to be second in yards per play margin. Cincinnati's defense is excellent. This is a really good defense, certainly a top 5 defense in the country. Their secondary is really good. Dylan Gabriel's a really good quarterback for UCF. I still think UCF's going to score points here. If I had to bet something on the total, I'd probably bet the under. Like you, I made it lower than what it is here. Although I'm really scared to bet an under in this game. I don't think I'll do it because UCF's defense has been really bad. They've had several guys opt out. They have several injuries. This is not even close to the defense that they expected to be playing with at this point in the season. Mm-hmm. UCF's defense, 5.72 yards per play allowed this year, which is no better than middle of the pack in the country. I know UCF had much higher hopes than that as far as the defense, especially since they haven't really played all really good offenses. I think Cincinnati's going to be able to score here. Cincinnati, 6.46 yards per carry. That's third best in the country. The question for me is Desmond Ridder as good as his stats show he is here recently? And I think Ritter's a good quarterback, but we've seen him struggle enough in these big games that I wonder if he may be a bit overvalued by what he's done here in the last few weeks. I think a game like this will be one that will help decide whether it is the real deal and he's just gotten a lot better. I know he had some injuries in the past that maybe he's just healthy now. On the other side, like I said, UCF, I agree with you. If you like UCF, I think you actually like the over in this game because UCF's going to give up points. Are they going to score enough? That's the question mark here. If I had to bet a side, I'd go against my PRs here and I'd take Cincinnati. Now, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sit on the sideline and watch this game. I think this is a fascinating game to watch as a fan. I don't think I'll be making a bet on this game.
All right. Well, there you go. It's going to be a great one to watch. And, even if you want to live bet it or something, it's up to you. I would kind of watch how Cincinnati's defense is doing in the first half. You watch also if there's some, if the flags are flying for pass interference, because if the flags are flying for pass interference, then it's possibly going to go over. So you just always got to wonder about the American Athletic Conference there. So good stuff, Kyle. Was there another listener question that I missed?
Yeah, it was NFL. So
okay, we can let's transition then. Well, before we transition, Kyle, we have to talk about our most likely dog to win outright, and it has to be over a 3.5 point difference here. It has to be a dog of plus 3.5 or more. Kyle, who do you have?
You start. I'm deciding between two here.
All right, well, I was deciding between two here, and I could say App State, but nobody wants to bet against Coastal Carolina. I mean, nobody. It's not fun, right? Even though it could be the right side. I mean, my numbers say that's the right side, and I'm not sure. I still might be betting App State, but for sake of this, I'm going to throw one that's going to pay a lot more. And so, most likely it won't win, but I like this. I like a couple things about it. I'm going to do what you did last week, and I'm going to go to Illinois. And the interesting part about Illinois here is they were able to run the ball a lot against Rutgers. Now it is Rutgers, of course, but I'll tell you right now, this is not a letdown spot for Illinois after beating Rutgers. Illinois, they're scary. They beat Wisconsin last year. They beat Michigan State last year. There's a couple games they were up on Michigan, but I think it was by a lot last year. Michigan was a better team last year, and then they lost at the end. So they're just one of those teams that bug people. They have a great defensive line, and one thing that people aren't really factoring into this line, in my opinion, is that they're getting some guys back from COVID. Wisconsin just got some guys back a week ago. Illinois, of course, got it because they played each other. They could have got it from each other. I have no idea. But they might be getting their quarterback back and a couple key defensive guys. And if that's the case, they have a really good shot here as a plus 500 dog, in my opinion. I think the weather was looking bad and it might have cleared up a little bit. But if you look at the fact that Nebraska switched quarterbacks from Adrian Martinez to Luke McCaffrey, and you look at that box score last week, McCaffrey didn't light it up. He was 100 and I think less than 100 passing, 150 passing yards, less than that. I mean, he took care of the ball, but he didn't. He wasn't flashy at all. Penn State outgained this team by over 200 yards, and these defensives they scored on a fumble. They sacked the quarterback. They grabbed the fumble. They ran it in. So they had a kind of an efficient game, but they didn't. They were certainly outgained by Penn State. Not only that, Penn State's a big name. Nebraska's probably celebrated a little bit after that. They're in a letdown spot here. There's a lot of reasons that Illinois could be sneaky here. So I'm going to give a long shot here, and I know it's less chance to cover. Obviously, you go from a 3.5 point spread to a 15.5 point spread. But I'm going to give that one out plus 500. Kyle, who is yours?
I will tell you the one that I liked beforehand. That's why I was kind of on the spot trying to change. I liked Oregon State against Cal here this week, but now they're only 3-point underdog. So I still think that could be a good money line underdog, but I don't want to bend the rules here. I want to stick with our 3.5 points or larger. I think it's hard to find a really big underdog to win outright this week. I will say, we don't pat ourselves on the back too much, but we've won quite a few of these money line underdogs. I mean, I know you talked about Rutgers in game 1 against Michigan State. That was a big money line underdog. I had Illinois last week. We talked about Liberty. You talked about Liberty there against Virginia Tech. We've won a lot of these money line underdogs, and a couple of the weeks the parlay would have won. So hopefully people have been able to bet this and make some money. I will say I'm going to keep it at a little bit smaller underdog here, about 4-point dog. I'll take Washington State here against Stanford. I know Jaden Delora is out with COVID. Jaden Delora was not necessarily their starting quarterback. It was a big competition. I think they have a couple other guys that they think are pretty similar to him here. Stanford has looked really bad. I had Stanford last week. I watched a decent amount of that game. I'm worried about where that program's going right now. I like David Shaw a lot as a person. I think he's a great guy. I don't know if Stanford's going in the right direction. Their defense is so bad. Remember a few years ago when Stanford could get all kinds of pressure on the quarterback? They always had a great offensive line. They could run the ball. They can't do that like they used to. I think Washington State now flies under the radar a bit. You're getting, plus 140, plus 150 here on Washington State money line. I'll take a chance here on Washington State against Stanford.
All right. Well, good stuff there. And I think Cruz is going to be their starting quarterback off the top of my head. And he was supposed to be the starting quarterback until Delora beat him, I believe. So that's good. I mean, another very capable quarterback here. Washington State, they should have covered last week, so they were very impressive against Oregon State their first week. So I like where you're going on that, and that's definitely one I'm going to highly consider betting myself. So good stuff, Kyle. Let's move into a little NFL then, and huge Sunday night game with the Chiefs and the Raiders. It's an 8-point spread. Now the Chiefs are road chalk to a 6-3 Raiders team, -8. Let's take a look here, Kyle, where the public and the sharper action is looking here, and I believe the Chiefs have a ton of money coming their way. It is a sharp move because this thing started at 7. It went down to 5.5 for a second, and then it pushed through the 7 when the limits went up to 8. 60% of the tickets are on the Chiefs. 91% of the money is on the Chiefs here. Now, Andy Reid, after a bye week, has been a very big motivator of some of these bets, in my opinion. But I think you have some strong thoughts on this game, Kyle. Why don't you get started?
Yeah, usually you and I agree more than what we're going to in this game. So it's nice to have a disagreement once in a while and just hash out both sides of what could be the way to go in this one. I like Kansas City in this one. I took -7. To be honest, I'm kind of disappointed I didn't get the 6 or 6.5 because then the news came out about Oakland or Las Vegas having a lot of COVID cases, and then it went up to 7, and was able to grab it before it kept going. To be honest here, Kansas City's in a really good spot. They off a bye Andy Reid. I think Reid's probably at least a top 2 or 3 coach in the NFL. Andy Reid is a really good coach. They have revenge here, and they have an extra week. You think Kansas City would give a really good effort in a game like this. Kansas City is also healthier, especially on defense, than they were the first time these two teams played. I know that the Raiders didn't look like a fluke when they beat them the first time, but Kansas City, I think, will be much more prepared than they were for that game. The Raiders still have plenty of weaknesses, especially as a defense. I had the Raiders over last week. Drew Lock single-handedly lost that over, just throwing picks in the end zone and in the red zone constantly. I think the Raiders' defense is still a big problem. Can the Raiders hit the big plays here against Kansas City's defense? I think they'll get a lot less of them than they did before. I still think it'll be a high-scoring game, but I like Kansas City here. I think motivational factors with revenge and the bye week. We see the sharp money coming in on Kansas City. I think Las Vegas is an improving team, but I think they're still a clear notch below Kansas City. And I think all the motivational factors and the spots favor Kansas City in this one. So I like the Chiefs here.
And you're not alone. I mean, there's a lot of people on them, and yes, there is COVID issues with the Raiders. Now, some of that COVID is precautionary, and some of the guys, if not most of them, will be back. I think there's a couple positive tests and there's a couple contact tracing. Does that sound right, Kyle?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I know that they had a bunch of guys listed on the injury report because it was just kind of a question of whether they'd be ready. I assume a lot of those guys will play, but I think there's going to be at least 2 or 3 of them out.
Yeah, that could definitely happen. I believe there's a few of them on the offensive line of the Chiefs that hasn't been practicing, but that's due to contact tracing from what I hear too. So, yeah, we do have a disagreement in this game, and I don't have that good of a number. I took the 7 early in the week, and it went down to 6, so I thought it was a good number. Then, obviously, the news came out here, and it goes to the 8. One thing I noticed right away, and possibly some of the reasons I made the reaction real quick, is because this is the second game that they're playing each other. It's usually a closer game. Even if the Chiefs whipped the Raiders last time, it's still a closer game usually to me when the two teams have already faced each other. They kind of seen each other. They can take care of things. I hate betting the overs, for example, the second divisional or conference type game, especially in divisions when you're talking about the NFL conference, when you're talking about college. I usually bet unders when that happens. Lots of the news is coming in favor of the Chiefs, but 8-9 points and it's in Las Vegas. That's a huge power ratings discrepancy because I have the Raiders as a better than average team by a decent amount. I mean, not a ton. I probably have them like as my 10th best team, maybe 12, something like that. I have to double check. I have the Chiefs as my best team, and I do think that the Chiefs will win the Super Bowl this year. They're my favorite to win the Super Bowl. But they have a few weaknesses, and I think that Gruden's not going to want to keep the the defense when they're gassed and when they're hurt on the field. He's going to want to run the ball. The Chiefs are the 4th worst team in rushing the ball per game. The 4th worst, and they're the 2nd worst in rushing efficiency out of the whole league. It's kind of a weird stat because, like I said in the podcast earlier this week, you'd figure that teams wouldn't be running the ball against the Chiefs because they're always behind. But for some reason, controlling the clock and everything has been a downfall for the Chiefs if they can't get Mahomes up there. It just takes a few mistakes for him to screw up here. So, looking at this one, I'm taking a very contrarian to everybody type move here. But I think the Raiders cover this spread at +8 just because of how well they've been playing. And number one, their strength of schedule is 3rd in the league. They've already played their tough games against New Orleans, Tampa Bay. The Chiefs' schedule is backloaded with those tough games. Their strength of schedule is 27th. This is an interesting spot here. And like I mentioned before, it's kind of interesting. The Raiders to win the division has been falling, and it's down to +600, which if they win this game, if the Raiders won it outright, and they're +250 dogs, but you might think they might win the division because the Chiefs have all their tough games. That's just you have to take that. That's just something I noticed. So the Raiders, big game for them. I think a backdoor possibility is very in the works because of the Raiders' offense. Ruggs, Aguilar, Jacobs, Carr's got a chip on his shoulder this year. They're playing at home. That's my argument, Kyle. Any rebuttal?
I don't disagree with the backdoor potential for this one. I think that the Chiefs will win this game. I will say that, you talk about power ratings. The Chiefs are number one in power ratings by a lot. I think it's clearly, they're at least 2.5, 3 points better than anybody else. So you're taking a team that is clearly the best team in the NFL, and you get them in a great situational spot with 2 weeks to get ready for this game. They circled this game, so I think this is a tremendous situational spot for Kansas City, and I guess we'll see who gets the props on next week's show.
All right. Well, the number's 8 right now when we're making this discussion. So I know you took 7. Let's just clear it out. 7. If it's 7 or 8, we'll just wipe it out. It has to be either 6 or 9. How this goes for between our little cross fire going on right here. So I will tell you that I'm not happy that how the Raiders celebrated that win in Kansas City. That definitely them circling around the stadium, how they did that definitely bugs me a little bit. So that's something to think about. Let's move on to the next NFL game though. Huge Monday night game, a good one too. We have the Rams versus the Tampa Bay Bucks, and this line, Kyle, is -4 right now. If I move on to the numbers here, I just got to switch screens. You're looking at the Rams. 52% of the bets are on the Rams, and only 23% of the money. 29 percentage point difference here. Okay, that's a sharper side for the Buccaneers for sure. I agree with that side. I do, and I agree with it because it's just such a terrible spot for the Rams. They just beat the Seahawks at home. Huge win for them, right? We were on the Rams that game. Now, they go to Tampa Bay with the San Francisco 49ers, who beat them this year, on deck. This Tampa Bay game isn't as important to them as the last game and the one coming ahead. You've got a West Coast team traveling all the way to the East Coast. The biggest thing for me, and I'll tell you right now, my power ratings actually has the Rams only a 2-point dog here. I'm very close to these teams as equal. So I'm going against my power ratings on my lean here. And it's a lean. Sean McVay, I think, is a really great coach. Right? So that's part of the reason why I'm not just completely going nuts here at the -4 here for Tampa Bay. But I think that Tampa's defense at 3.2 sacks per game is going to get to Goff and rattle him. If you just look at it simply, if you're going to say just one thing, Kyle, about this game, what I would say is you have Tom Brady at home facing Jared Goff on the road. I mean, it's that simple here. So I have a strong lean to Tampa Bay -4. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you that you have Tom Brady at home. Also, after a bad primetime showing the last time they were in primetime against the Saints, I would think that Tampa Bay would show up ready to play in this game. It would surprise me if they don't. The other thing that I'm going to add to what you said, because I basically agree with everything you say, we don't disagree on this game. I like Tampa Bay here too. I think that if you look at Jared Goff, where you've gotten him in trouble is you bring a lot of pressure after him. He is not good under pressure. Tampa Bay can do that. I think they can bring a lot of heat here. The Rams' offensive line is a bit banged up right now. I think Goff is going to be under a lot of pressure here. So then you would say, well, can the Rams run? Tampa Bay's run defense is probably the best in the NFL. They're very good run defense. I think that it's going to be tough for this Rams offense to get much going in this game. And, like you said, you get Tom Brady at home against Jared Goff on the road. Goff is so inconsistent. He can look good at times, and he can almost trick you into thinking he's a good NFL quarterback. And then other times you see him and he looks so bad. I mean, he looks like I don't know. He looks like a Bears quarterback. Sorry. I had to. You always give me trouble about that Ohio State-Purdue game. So, but Yeah, I mean, Jared Goff can look like a pretty good quarterback, or he can look really bad. His floor is so low, and I think that there's a real possibility we could see really bad Jared Goff in this game. And if you see really bad Jared Goff in this game, Tampa Bay is a bargain here at this price. So I like Tampa Bay. I would lean to the under, though. I will say, when you look at what they scored last year when they played each other, it really concerns you if you want to take the under. So I don't think I'll take the under. Strong lean here to Tampa Bay for me.
Funny about the Bears quarterbacks, they tried out Deshaun Kaiser this week. So just piggybacking on your thoughts there of how awful their decisions are when it comes to quarterbacks. Yeah, it's maybe Goff's going to be so bad one day that the Bears will want to hire him. We'll see. But I like what you're saying there. Under, I think that once you rattle Goff, it's really hard for him to get his mind back and not look behind his back when he's trying to throw the ball here. So I think Tampa's going to play some tight defense, and if there's any chance, Goff's going to have to throw it pretty deep and hopefully get some skill plays from Robert Woods and a few of it maybe Reynolds. I don't think there's going to be a lot of Cooper Kupp action. I think it's going to be between if those guys can make plays or not. But simply, Tom Brady's got a great cast. I do love the Rams defense. Aaron Donald is an absolute beast. Bruce Arians is going to know that, and he's going to stay away from him. I also think that, their cornerback, Jalen Ramsey, is the best in the league for sure. And the weapons on Tampa is just too great. You have Cameron Brate and tight end. You have Rob Gronkowski. Now they have Antonio Brown, which I think is going to have a huge game here. Some people were saying that they're going to put Ramsey in the slot against Brown. I don't know about that, but who cares when you have Godwin back and you have Evans? It's just too many of them. So stay away from Ramsey. Play a smart game. Get the ball out of your hand fast, Brady. They're probably going to be running the ball a little bit to Jones, but it's just a bad spot here for the Rams. So that's my thoughts on that one. So that moves us into our free play, Kyle. And my free play has to do with the listener question, right? Somebody talked about the Saints situation here with Taysom Hill. Kyle, do you remember who did that?
Yeah, there was a question here on Twitter about the Saints. I got to look and see who did ask this question, but there was a question from Logan Guidry about Taysom Hill being named the starter. How does that affect your numbers in this game versus if it was Jameis Winston?
Well, it affects the total more for me. So I was looking at this game as maybe with Jameis Winston, Sean Payton slows down. But if they get jumped, he's going to have to start throwing the ball, and then the over could have been a decent look because you know how erratic Jameis Winston is. You look last year, Teddy Bridgewater did a great job, but their defense really stepped up. And let's face it, Alvin Kamara is just a beast for this team. I mean, he's probably the MVP of the Saints, and it's a quarterback award, as our guest said earlier in the podcast, unfortunately, but Kamara is just having just an amazing year. And I think you're going to see a lot of Kamara. But the fact that Taysom Hill now is the quarterback, you're going to see wildcat action. You're going to see him running the ball. You're going to see some read options, right? You're going to see him go around the ends. You're going to see some short passes. I think that's going to be a huge running game. And I think the Saints are going to want to slow it down because why would you want to go against Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley and Gage and all the guys there in a shootout? That's just not the way that Sean Payton is going to play this game. I don't know what I don't know what Jameis Winston did, whose Wheaties he actually pissed in this week, but he pissed someone off, or he's just not as good as Taysom Hill. I think Taysom Hill is really good, but I just don't know him as a check down type professional pocket quarterback. That tells me they're just going to completely pound this ball. And I also like the fact that he's not going to be erratic, and you're going to have a less of a chance of a pick six, in my opinion. So I think you're going to see a slower game, and I think you're going to see the defense really step up for the possibly for both teams. Actually, Atlanta's been doing great. They won 3 of the last 4, and they should have won that game where Gurley went in the touchdown against the Lions. But it's just kind of Atlanta's time to heat up a little bit, and their defense has been playing better, and I see it under, and it's my free play. I took it as soon as the Taysom Hill news came out. I fired it under 51 and gave it out immediately. I still like it under 50. I like it down to 48. So yeah, I know it's not as key as 49, but I just don't see how this thing's going to score. So that's my thoughts on it, Kyle. What about you?
I think that Winston obviously takes a lot of chances, and he's a good over quarterback because it can be a pick six or it can be a long touchdown at any point. I do wonder a little bit if this is gamesmanship by Peyton. I mean, you wonder if Winston will get in and play some in this game, and they're saying he won't. We'll see. I think Taysom Hill. Uh, I mean, we know that Sean Payton really likes Taysom Hill a lot. Everybody knows that. Now, I assume he might be a little bit better throwing the football than what we've seen so far. I don't think the Falcons' defense is very good still. I think that from a side standpoint, it's hard not to at least lean the Falcons if you're getting some points here. The Falcons have been great at playing to win games that they actually probably would be better to lose at the end of the season. They ruin their draft position a lot of different seasons by doing this. They start out slowly and then they end up winning a bunch of games at the end and then get a middling draft pick instead of one of the high draft picks. So I would lean Falcons here. I think the market is adjusted enough, though. As I look, this line is 3.5 now. So we've got New Orleans minus 3.5 or a couple fours, but mostly 3.5. So you're not getting any great value taking the Falcons plus 3.5. Maybe even if you like the Falcons, you could take a small money line price. The Falcons and Saints is a pretty good rivalry, and there can be some strange things happen in that game. So I think that it being Hill, I agree, makes it lower scoring. If he plays the whole game, it would favor the under, certainly.
All right, well, good stuff there, Kyle. So under 50 is my play for 2 stars. What do you have for our listeners?
So I like Florida and Vanderbilt over the total. That'll be my free play here. I also like Florida team total over. Most books don't have that up yet, but Florida is really running up the score on people. I think they're really trying to get Trask a Heisman. So I think if you want to get Trask really good numbers, get him 6 or 7 touchdowns, who's the perfect opponent to do that against? Vanderbilt. So I think they're going to score a lot of points in this one. And Vandy's offense, has been a little bit better of late. They've actually moved the ball. They scored a lot of points on Kentucky. They moved the ball against Mississippi State. I like over 67.5, 68 here. So I'll take that as my free play since I know some people don't have access to team totals, but I also do like Florida team total over.
All right, well, there you go. Florida team total over and the over of the game. I like it, Kyle. That's some good thinking right there. You're right. They are trying to get Trask a Heisman. He jumped up in those odds. I think he's a favorite now, which is kind of interesting. So that's cool. All right, man. So where can our viewers find your great information and plays this weekend?
Go to huntersportspicks.com. You can find my college football pass for the rest of the year discounted. Also the NFL pass discounted. Also want to note that my college basketball pass is up now. So if you want to get my college basketball season pass, I've been hard at work on prep for college basketball. Fingers crossed that things work out for a college basketball season as much as possible. But I'll also be discounting the college basketball season pass price if you want to purchase anything football wise the rest of this year. If you want to do any kind of special offer like that, you can send me a message at Kyle Hunter Picks on Twitter or Kyle at huntersportspicks.com.
All right, sounds great. And check us out at the Odds Breakers at all times for free plays, free subscriber plays, and obviously if you'd like to support us and become a premium member, you'll get my plays as well. Everyone, thank you so much for viewing. If you have any questions for next week's episode, we would love to hear them throughout the week. Have a great rest of your week and enjoy the games.
Good luck, everybody.